Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the morning drive here on Phantom Sports. I'm your host, Adam Mancuda, the host of the All Out Blitz, which comes to you every Sunday morning at 11:45, taking you up to kickoff. But the morning drive is a new enterprise for us here at Phantom Sports, where we're going to take you in-depth trade analysis, waiver wire additions, a little early look at the gambling lines ahead of the Week 5 action this week. We have Colts and Patriots Thursday night. Should be a great game. Vinatieri just broke that all-time field goal record. Now Luck takes on Brady again. Should be actually a high-scoring matchup. So the goal of the morning drive is to really send in all of your questions, fantasy-related. Who are you going to add? Who are you going to drop? I'll give some of my information as well in terms of who I like moving forward. We'll certainly, the more interactivity we have here, the better. The more questions that come in, the better. All you got to do is drop that question into the comment feed right here, and we'll answer those questions right away. We'll get to as many as possible. If it takes longer than a half hour to get through all of them, I'd be happy to answer all of them. We'll dive right in, and obviously, some Week 5 analysis here. Remember, also, find us on Sunday mornings and throughout the week in the Fantasy Phantom Forum. You have the link there below. Only $1 to join for the first month, $4.99 after that. It's great content. I do it. I should say that, right? You can find my content also. I appear on DraftKings The Sweat multiple times during the week, so certainly hit me up there as well. Love having more interactivity here, but we could certainly dive in. Questions, advice, analysis, just drop them in. Matt, Zach, G, and Carnot, thank you for joining us this morning. So certainly keep those questions coming in. I know a bunch of people are going to start filing in here. Touch base with a lot of folks this morning. One thing that I kind of want to touch on real early here is something that we've learned, in the last couple weeks. And Calvin Ridley is a guy that you want to take an eye on and try to get in all of your leagues. Obviously, he's off the waiver wire, but this guy is just a bad, bad man. 5 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. The guy seems to be outplaying Julio Jones. There's no question that this guy is here to stay. So if you could somehow grab Ridley in a league, especially in a keeper league where this guy certainly was probably drafted late and you could probably keep him for a long period of time, certainly add him to your league. Then we got also some stuff. Have some QBs here turn the corner. I mean, Andrew Luck, threw for over 400 yards this week, bunch of touchdowns. I mean, hit Naheem Hines a couple times in the end zone. He's actually off to a really good start. Deshaun Watson's another guy here in this game that actually, exploded again. He's got 2 or 3 really solid receivers. I think he's a really good option, moving forward. And then you got the other guy here that I want to touch on, Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, my goodness, what a performance. 6 touchdowns, against the Buccaneers. Now, granted, the Buccaneers are just a terrible defense right now, but he's able to run the ball, hit his receivers. He's got a bunch of playmakers there. So to me, I really think we have the opportunity to see a coming out party here for Trubisky, and I'm guessing he's going to be on a lot of waiver wires this week. So please take a look at him. He's got those weapons: Burton, Robinson, Gabriel, Howard, Cohen. I mean, geez, he's a real stud in the making here, from what it seems. So grab him where you can. Also, we're going to see some ups and downs from some rookies here. Josh Rosen, you could see here, a little wide on this pass. Struggled a little bit against the Seahawks, but you know what? First game, first start. You got to expect that from the young guy. Also, you got Baker Mayfield, who, again, he had 4 turnovers in that game against the Raiders, but was it really his fault? Had a tip pass. I think they should have won the game. They got a little bit unlucky with the referees, but he hit Duke Johnson here on this nice little wheel route out of the backfield. The guy's actually played really well. I was impressed with how he went on the road, and, he's a leader. This guy's a born leader. And if you look at his matchups, one thing to consider is that outside of the next couple weeks where he has some tough matchups, he then has a stretch of about 4 or 5 games against some of the worst defenses in the league. So especially in a streaming league where you could grab him and potentially, stash him for 4 matchups, or even play him in DFS in those matchups, which I believe include Atlanta, Tampa Bay. I mean, those are terrible defenses right now. Pittsburgh, I believe, is another one. He should have some value there. Then, again, bonanza potential just across the league. I mean, this matchup between the Vikings and the Rams was just sensational. I mean, points galore, studs everywhere, tons of guys that constantly are just performing. You can't bench anyone on either of these 2 offenses right now, between Cousins and Goff and Gurley. And, I mean, the up and down the list. And this is not the only game that we saw this from this weekend. We had the Texans and the Colts go nuts. We had the Patriots score 38. The Jaguars scored a handful of points. Even the Titans put up over 25 points this week. I mean, there is scoring all over the league, and it's great to see. So then, again, we're going to also touch on some stock up guys here. Hopefully we'll get some questions coming into the forum in terms of what we want to look at trade analysis wise. We'll answer some waiver wire guys, but while we wait those questions, some guys that I'm really looking at this week. Again, Sony Michel busted out for the Patriots, over 100 yards and a touchdown. We told you last week he's going to be the bell cow back for the Pats moving forward. He's really been solid the last week and a half. So to me, Michel's the guy you want to pick up. Aaron Jones is another name here down on the list. We touted last week. He's the most talented back in that backfield for the Packers right now. Chances are now with Le'Veon Bell going back to the Steelers, who knows if they're going to actually make a move to try to trade the guy. But for now, Aaron Jones is the guy I would want in the Green Bay Packers backfield. So look to pick him up. He scored again this week. And then you guys on the list we talked about, Mayfield, Trubisky, stock up for these guys. Taylor Gabriel, what a performance this guy had with Trubisky. Had 7 catches, I believe, caught everything thrown to him, 7 targets, had a couple touchdowns. Again, when you have a guy that's going to play against some of these bad defenses, you spread the ball around, Gabriel's going to get his. Cooper Kupp, what a performance he had against the Vikings. I mean, I went to get up against him in my league this week, and I got crushed. I mean, that guy put on such a performance, got deep, got behind the Vikings defense, great performance. Jared Cook, another guy that I'm actually kind of upset with, that I benched him this week, and it cost me a week, and now I'm 1-3. So Cook, 2 touchdowns against Baker and the Browns this past week. So for me, he's someone to certainly take a look at if you're desperate in terms of a tight end. You lost Tyler Eifert to that broken ankle, or anyone to these injuries, Delaney Walker, Evan Ingram. You could certainly look at Jared Cook if he's available in your league, or at least look to acquire him. And Jameis Winston's another one that we should absolutely touch on here. Doesn't look like Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to get his job back. To me, it's someone that you just want to stay away from at this point, Fitzpatrick, meanwhile. But the Tampa Bay defense allows you as an owner to really pick up Winston and enjoy the points that you're going to get. Look, the Buccaneers haven't stopped anyone all season. They didn't stop the Steelers. They didn't stop the Bears. They didn't stop the Eagles. And they didn't stop the Saints in Week 1 despite that huge 48-40 win. So what does that mean? It means points galore and garbage time points if your defense can't stop anyone. So that's stock up for Mike Evans. That's stocked up for Cameron Brate now with O.J. Howard banged up. You also have Jameis Winston there who's got these weapons to throw to. Garbage time means garbage yards, garbage touchdowns. So to me, Jameis Winston's an interesting guy. If you could find the right matchup where they're going up against another terrible defense, Atlanta, he's a perfect matchup for you in any league, especially if you lost a quarterback like Jimmy G or have a quarterback like Russell Wilson who's underperforming. So keep the comments coming. Yeah, Bart, killed me too. I mean, Cooper Kupp, when I turned on the game the other night, we had some family over here, turned the game on later, and I look at it, he got 2 touchdowns, 170 yards or whatever the guy had, and he put up a 30 spot. He's going to kill us in all those leagues, and certainly I lost by 9 points. So any one of those Cooper Kupp touchdown passes or long catches would have saved me from an embarrassing loss this week. But hey, the guys actually played really well. Goff's a guy, look, if you're in a keeper league right now, there aren't too many quarterbacks I'd want more than Goff long term. The guy's got a phenomenal head coach with a brilliant offensive mind out there. He's also got weapons galore with Kupp and Cooks, and I mean, even their tight end Gerald Everett, if you watched him in college, was very talented and good. The guy can catch the ball, run with it, and of course you got Gurley out of the backfield, and just he's a sensational running back, and obviously the top running back in the league right now. David Irby coming out this week for the Cowboys. You think Deshaun Watson has a good game? Look, I think that Deshaun Watson right now is on a roll, and you wouldn't know it because the Texans haven't been playing that well, and they're 1-3. But look at the numbers against the Giants. Look at the numbers this week against the Colts. I just think Deshaun Watson is ready to take that next step, as we saw last year. He had a little rust early this season in the Patriots game. I think that he actually continues to develop here. The Will Fuller injury is a little bit concerning because Fuller has so many soft tissue injuries that have caused him to miss games over the last few years. He may miss this game. He sat out the second half. He's obviously got DeAndre Hopkins. He's got talented Lamar Miller. They don't have much at the tight end position. Another guy that's stock up this week for me, and as a waiver wire guy is shown on my video over at Phantom earlier this week, was Kike Kute, the talented receiver from Texas Tech who happened to play with Pat Mahomes. So this is a speed guy. You saw him take some end-around sweeps. He could get deep. So for me, Watson, even if he loses, Fuller has a good option there in Kute, who, again, is most likely on your wire because he didn't play until last week, made his debut, and actually went off. So to me, I like Deshaun Watson moving forward. I'm more comfortable playing him. And look, the Cowboys' offense, as you know, just struggles unbelievably against everything. So again, are they going to have the ball? Are they going to be able to control the clock? Doubtful. That means more possessions for the Texans, and I actually like Deshaun Watson a lot. Bart, over under 10 receptions for Edelman. Great question. And if you know me, I'm a Pats guy, self-admitted. However, I do like Edelman this week. I would say under 10 receptions, but if he's going to get you 6 to 7 receptions, he's then going to get you 60 to 70 yards. And look, Gronkowski may miss this game. He's a little banged up. They considered him day to day. He was the only Pat not to practice yesterday. We'll see the reports coming out this morning in terms of whether he's available. Remember, the game's only on Thursday, so the quick turnaround for the Pats. But you got to remember something. Edelman is so comfortable in this system. He's been in the system his whole career. He's obviously very comfortable with Brady. I think that if Gronk misses the game, that means more opportunities for Josh Gordon. And you've seen Chris Hogan, for whatever the reason, has been a non-factor so far this season. You saw Cordell Patterson get a touchdown this week. You saw Dorsett catch a touchdown this week. Hogan's been killing every fantasy owner. But getting back to Edelman, I think 6 to 7 receptions in his first game back seems about right. If they happen to get into a shootout, though, with the Colts, which is certainly possible, but I'll touch on the Colts in a second, I would see Edelman going over 10. The problem with the Colts right now is T.Y. Hilton may miss the game because of an injury. Jack Doyle's most likely to miss his third straight game. So who do they have the ball? Who are they throwing to? Zach Pascal, I believe, Chester Rogers, Naheem Hines out of the backfield. So to me, the Colts are a little banged up. I don't expect this to be that close. I expect the Pats to cover, and we'll kind of touch on that in a little while. But for me, Edelman under 10 catches. Jason offered Darvin Cook and Austin Seferian-Jenkins for Philip Lindsay. Look, I think that obviously everyone's right now concerned about Dalvin Cook. Rightfully so. This is a type of injury that's going to linger, and what concerns me the most about Cook is that he said after the game he got injured in that, it was nothing. It was a nothing injury. He'd be back. And certainly that did not happen. He's now been out 2 games. He missed the Bills game. He also missed, he played last week against the Rams, but just not effectively. To me, you got to go for Cook. I know Philip Lindsay has showed really, really well so far this season, but remember something. They have Devontae Booker, who's waiting in the wings, but more importantly, they have Royce Freeman, who's splitting carries. Eventually, Dalvin Cook and this offense are going to get going. You saw some signs against the Rams. Now, granted, the Rams have been banged up the last week or so. I like Dalvin Cook. If you can get him in a league for a guy like Phil Lindsay, think about it this way. If before the season started, you said to someone, I'm going to trade you Dalvin Cook and Austin Seferian-Jenkins for Philip Lindsay, someone would have turned around and said, who the heck is Philip Lindsay? So to me, that's the answer I need. Give me Dalvin Cook. I'll worry about the injury. I think he'll bounce back. I know that the reports yesterday said he still wasn't 100%, but to me, he's a guy that you got to play, and you got to certainly pick up if you can. Philip Lindsay's replaceable. You'll see as the weeks kind of go on here, other backs you can pick up off the waiver wire if you're concerned. Ronald Jones of the Bucs is a name that comes to mind. Naheem Hines of the Colts, who I just touched on. Even a guy like Mike Davis, who, I'll say here in a second, I'll show you my little list of Don't Believe the Hype, and he's on there. He's going to be part of that 3-headed monster in Seattle moving forward. But hey, the guy had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So if Chris Carson's injury is going to linger, that's a huge one to keep in mind. So, again, for all of you guys just joining us, this is the Morning Drive premiere episode every Tuesday morning here on Phantom at 9:30 in the morning Eastern Time. All throughout the week on the Phantom Fantasy Forum. You can catch plenty of this content. We do a ton of game previews. We give you our game picks. We give you our trade 'em, start 'em, bench 'em, trade bait videos. We also have our Sunday show, the All Out Blitz. Every Sunday morning, 11:45, right until kickoff. We give you all the instant analysis, all the late breaking news. We break it down for you, trades, lineup suggestions. Join us at the forum. It's $1 to join, so it's really nothing. You get me 24/7, instant access to me. My wife loves it. So just hit us up there. The link's there on the bottom. Simply join us. Zach's got a question. What are the key matchups for next weekend's games? I think one of the big matchups we just touched on it for Thursday is, can Andrew Luck overcome the lack of weapons against the Pats? Look, the Pats have been really bad against the pass this year, yet then they shut down Ryan Tannehill this past weekend. Tannehill's got more weapons around him right now than Luck does, considering the injury, so that's an interesting game to play there. I think some of the other matchups in this league, you want to see how Mahomes goes against the Jaguars. I mean, last night you saw Pat Mahomes overcome a raucous crowd in Denver, a really good defense in Denver with a lot of pressure. And what did he do? I think he became the first quarterback in over a decade to overcome a 10-point deficit in Denver on the road in the fourth quarter. So for me, Mahomes against that Jaguars defense is a game that I'm going to be tuned into. The Jaguars, again, how good is their offense going to be? It looks like Leonard Fournette is going to be out again indefinitely with that injury. So TJ Yeldon's an option there for some guys that are looking to get a running back in. I certainly think he's playable this weekend against the Chiefs. If you got him or can add him, because that Chiefs defense, I think, they played well last night, but look at how bad that Broncos offense is. Case Keenum is just not a good quarterback. To me, Demaryius Thomas has been a huge disappointment again this season. So for me, Mahomes against that Jaguars defense is a really, really interesting game this weekend with a lot of good matchups in there. Some other things, don't believe the hype. Some guys on my list here. Nick Chubb, if you look at the numbers and you look at the box score, you see over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Well, that's great. He had a ton of yards and a touchdown in a very long run. And they still got Carlos Hyde there in Cleveland. And all that guy does is score touchdowns every single week. I don't see them incorporating Nick Chubb more into this offense until the second half of the season. So for me, I would actually stay away from him real quick. Ito Smith's another name. He scored this past weekend for the Falcons, but as soon as Devontae Freeman comes back, this guy's going to be a non-factor. They still got Tevin Coleman there. You got the playmakers at receiver with Ridley and Jones, Hooper, Sanu. So once Freeman gets back, I think he'll probably be back within the next 1 to 2 weeks. Ito Smith kind of becomes an afterthought. We talked about Mike Davis. Dak Prescott, for all of our Cowboy fans out there, Mazel Tov. The guy threw for over 250 yards, and they got the win against the Lions. I'm not sold. I just do not see him having a very solid year this year with the offensive line issues. Look, they got Zeke Elliott, who's one of the best backs in the league, but outside of that, they got nothing at the receiver and tight end position right now. And to me, Dak Prescott is a guy you can't get too excited about. Other guys on the list, we have C.J. Beathard of the 49ers. He had a nice day against the Chargers, but again, the Chargers have proven week in and week out this year, outside of the game against Buffalo, that they're just not a good defense. They've got lit up by a handful of teams now, including the 49ers. I just don't believe in Beathard after what I saw last week. Good morning, Ari. How are you? Taiwan Taylor, Marcus Mariota of the Titans. I like them, and I love their performance against the Eagles, but I'm just not sold. Taylor had 7 catches, I believe, 77 yards. Impressive guy out of Western Kentucky. If he becomes the go-to guy for Mariota outside of Corey Davis, I mean, he should have value in PPR leagues, but let's see another game out of these guys. They've been winning with defense. They actually shut down the Eagles pretty well, and for me, they're kind of duo right now to just keep an eye on, but I wouldn't go crazy trying to add Mariota or Taiwan Taylor in your league. So keep the questions coming. Hot take on the Cowboys. Yeah, Ari, I know. I'm just not sold. So for me, it's one of those situations where you got Zeke, you got to play Zeke if you have him in your league. The defense has actually played pretty well, but for me, you got to stay away from Dak. And I'm a guy that drafted Dak in my fantasy league 2 years ago, when he was starting, because I liked what I saw at Mississippi State and obviously in the preseason. So keep your questions coming. Happy to answer all of them. We have a handful of people on, any line of questions, waiver wire advice, trade advice, or early gambling leans here. We'll touch on that in a second. We have plenty, though, to come on. The Fantasy Football Forum, thank you for posting that link in there. This is a great group of people that we have running the Fan Forum. We give you all the analysis throughout the week. We give you game previews again. Thursday night, we give you the game picks and previews for the weekend. We touch on college football as well. If you have college football questions, college football fantasy questions, I know some of you guys out there do that. I do it. If you have college football gambling questions, we actually are now about 8 or 9 games over 500 for college football this year, at least I am. And our gambling picks for NFL have been vastly improved over the last 2 weeks now that we've seen a little bit more action out there. Speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about those game lines. Let's go to Ari first. I have Breeze and Watson. Which one would you trade? Ari, that's a great question. I think, honestly, you got to, if you really are weak at a certain position, running back or wide receiver, take a look at who you can get for both. Send trade offers out there. I think that's the best way to do it. I don't think one at this point is that much better than the other. But if there's an owner that values Breeze or Watson more, you take that offer for the better player. So, for instance, if Watson can get you Alvin Kamara, which is not going to ever happen. So let's say he can get you David Johnson, and Drew Brees can get you Le'Veon Bell, who should be back in a few weeks. Obviously, go with the guy that you want more on your team. So, it's A.J. Green or Julio Jones or whatever the decision is. I think Breeze and Watson at this point are equal enough where you can trade either one and feel comfortable. And then add a guy like Trubisky or Dalton on your team as the backup and stream them when needed. Remember something, Watson and this Texans team is giving up a ton of points. So the quick answer would be, yeah, I want Breeze and I could trade Watson. But when the Texans don't give up, when the Texans can't stop anybody, which they haven't done all season, including the Giants, who look awful, they're going to play from behind in a lot of games. So Watson's certainly a viable option there. Your pick, Texas versus OU. G, you got to go with Oklahoma. People keep telling us Texas is back, baloney. Until they win a big game and consistently win big games, I don't believe it. I'm a big Kyler Murray guy. I'm very upset for Oklahoma that they lost Rodney Anderson, who was like my preseason sleeper for the Heisman after what he did last year. But Trey Sermon's a very solid back. They got CeeDee Lamb. They got Brown, the receiver. I think too much Kyler Murray. I think he had 7 touchdowns last week. I think he has a big day against Texas. We'll actually touch on that game in a few moments on that one. But early leans for some NFL games. I like the Chiefs -6 against the Jags. I don't think the Jags will be able to keep up with the Chiefs, and I don't think the Jags in this period of time, over a week, are going to have enough to slow down Mahomes, especially after he was already slowed last night against Denver. I think they'll learn some things from there. Pittsburgh -3.5 against the Falcons. I actually like the Falcons in this one. Look, Pittsburgh's a mess right now. Even with Le'Veon Bell supposedly coming back, how's that locker room going to accept him? I think, Ben Roethlisberger's not playing great. They just lost at home to the Ravens. Give me the Falcons, I think, in that one. That's an early lean. Philly and Minnesota. Think about this. These are two of the top teams in the NFC entering the year, and they're both in trouble. Philadelphia doesn't look great. Minnesota's defense doesn't look good. The offense doesn't look good. As we mentioned, Dalvin Cook hasn't looked great. So, to me, this is a toss-up. It's a little too early for me to give you a pick. I would probably lean Vikings right now just because I think they have the better defense at this point. Rams in Seattle, give me the Rams. I don't think that Seattle keeps them under 40 now, especially with Earl Thomas likely out for the year. The Pats and the Colts, I think the Pats win this game by double digits, so give me the Pats. And the Bengals -5.5 against the Dolphins. This is a very interesting game. Two teams that are playing much better than people anticipated. I love what I see from Andy Dalton. I love that they're getting Tyler Boyd involved. The guy is over, I believe, 9 catches or 7 catches the last 3 weeks. He's actually caught more balls than A.J. Green most recently. Boyd's got a bunch of touchdowns. Green caught the game winner. And the Dolphins just looked atrocious against the Patriots defense that hasn't done well all season. They only scored 7 points, and that was with their backup quarterback, Brock Osweiler. Yeah, give me the Bengals in that one. Keep your questions coming in for all trade advice and anything like that. Happy to see more people joining in. Love it. I think that this is a great time of day to have this show, as we could kind of set your waiver wire priorities for the week. Most waiver wires obviously run tonight. And then throughout the week on the Fantasy Forum, you could certainly check out some trade advice. We obviously have an open forum. You get access to me 24/7, as I mentioned earlier. We'll put up great game previews where I'll tell you who to start, who to bench, and why. And then throughout the week, we'll follow up with these game picks. And then the Sunday morning all-out blitz show, 11:45 right until kickoff. And for $1, I mean, it's quite a deal to get access to me whenever you want it. Let's touch on some. Oh, we got a question from Yakuda. Who do you like this week? Jags, D versus KC offense. Joe, love you, buddy. Congrats on winning the Fantasy Baseball League. Joe's a longtime friend of mine, and he won the Fantasy Baseball League, our keeper week yesterday. Mazel tov, Joe. I will send your check and money out as soon as possible. Who do I like this week? Jags, D versus KC offense. I like the KC offense. Look. I think the Jaguars gave up points to the Pats. The Chiefs offense is better than the Pats. They shut down the Jets. The Jets offense is terrible. To me, I think Mahomes is going to put a lot of pressure on that Jaguars defense. No Leonard Fournette again this week. He's out indefinitely. Even though the Chiefs defense isn't as good as the Jaguars, obviously, how are the Jags going to be able to move the ball? Hopefully the Chiefs get some healthy guys back on defense. I just think that the Jaguars also last year against the Pats, they didn't have Edelman. Gronk was knocked out in that first half, I believe, in the AFC Championship game. And the Pats still maneuvered their guys around and had enough weapons to beat them. Think about this now with the Chiefs. They have so many weapons, and the Jaguars have those guys to match up with them on defense. However, for me, the Chiefs are just too loaded. So I actually like the Chiefs in that game. I think the line was 6. Give me the Chiefs probably by 8 or 9 points in that one. I just don't love the Jaguars' offense at all. They easily could have lost the Giant game. They easily almost choked away that Patriot game. They overmatched the Jets, and obviously they lost to the Titans at home, who at that point had no offense. So to me, the Chiefs' offense is just going to be a little too much. Who you got in the Dallas or Texans? I like the Texans. The reason being, I just am not sold on that Dallas offense. Look, the Texans' defense is terrible. We all get it. The Colts just lit them up for over 400 yards. Andrew Luck looked like the old Andrew Luck. But to me, the Cowboys just don't have enough weapons, and I think that if Will Fuller plays, and I think he's a big key. Let's wait and see on how Will Fuller does, as we get later into the week. I think Will Fuller is a key here. Kike Kute was great last week in his debut game against the Colts, but if Fuller and Hopkins are out there, then Watson has his full complement of weapons, and I think that's trouble for the Dallas secondary. I think that they gave up a huge game to Golden Tate this weekend, and we're all okay to come out of that game with a win. They were able to shut down Kenny Galladay a little bit, but he still went over 70 yards. So to me, there's just too many weapons for the Texans, so I'd actually lean Texans over the Cowboys, which I know makes a lot of people upset down there in Texas. But let's touch real quickly here, and we're going to go past 10 o'clock, I think, this morning. It's our premiere episode. Why not? Let's keep it going. Keep the questions coming in. I have nothing to do for a little bit, so keep them coming. Check the lines here for college football. We touched on Oklahoma. I just like their offense way too much against Texas, and I'm not a believer in the Longhorns. LSU and Florida, great game here. Not sold yet on the Florida offense. I think the LSU defense is one of the premier units in the country. Their offense is solid as well. Give me the LSU Tigers in that one. Miami and FSU. Look, Miami is definitely not the second best team in the ACC again this year like they were last year. FSU is a hot mess. I think Miami covers this spread. I would say they win by 15, 16 points. Texas A&M Kentucky is a great game. You might not think that because can Kentucky play football? Well, yeah, they can. And they got a great running back who most likely will be a first-round pick next year, Benny Snell. Check him out. I actually like Kentucky in this game. Then you got Auburn and Mississippi State. Mississippi State's just not the same team. They have Nick Fitzgerald back from last year. He just hasn't been as good as last year. I like Auburn in that game, giving 3.5. And if it comes down anymore to like 2.5, 2, I'm certainly going to jump on Auburn. And then Notre Dame, Virginia Tech. Notre Dame was very impressive last week against Stanford. Shut down Bryce Love for the most part. Shut down that Stanford offense in the second half. They look explosive. Book, the young quarterback, looks great. I actually like them to blow out Virginia Tech. I mean, if Old Dominion could put up 40 plus against them, Notre Dame's going to put up 40 as well. So give me Notre Dame in that one. Let's keep the... Matt Bright, hot take. Virginia Tech wins. Well, Matt, tell me why. I saw that they won last weekend. They looked completely unimpressive against Old Dominion. They lose it. I think they just lost their starting quarterback as well. And Old Dominion was a team that had lost all of their games, and against teams like Liberty and teams like that, they don't look good. They have a couple playmakers. They have Jeremy Cox, the running back. They have Blake LaRussa, the quarterback at ODU. But to me, that loss is troubling, especially with the quarterback situation for Virginia Tech. Home game at 8 p.m. in Lane. That doesn't mean anything to me. I went to Syracuse, and my team in 2002 went in there, day game, middle of the afternoon. They were terrible. Your guys, I think, were top 10, and we knocked them off. So I think the Lane Stadium factor is something, but to me, Notre Dame just looks loaded. They have talent. They're getting healthier. To me, I like what Kelly's doing there. The Stanford win, is a very, very impressive one. Let's see them go on the road. Look, I could be wrong, and we could talk about this again next Tuesday. And I admit I'm wrong. And Matt, I'll put up my hand. I'll be like, Matt, you know what? I was wrong. So if that happens, I will certainly talk about it with you guys. Let's go back here. Plenty of insight, leans, and analysis throughout the week here on FANTOM. We're going to go past 10 o'clock this morning with our premiere episode because I definitely want to get to everyone's questions out there. Some obviously thoughts on the Pats and the Colts here as we are 2 days away from that game. If you're an owner of one of these guys, I would play him. Andrew Luck. I think that Pats defense, again, is suspect against the pass, and I think Luck will do enough. He threw it over 50, 60 times against the Texans. I'd play him. I would absolutely play Nyheim Hines. I think that's a matchup problem against the Patriots, especially in PPR leagues. Hines did this at North Carolina State, so it's not a surprise that he caught a couple touchdowns. I like him a lot this week. Outside of that, if T.Y. Hilton plays, you're going to play him. Eric Ebron, I guess, if you're down a tight end after that gruesome injury to Tyler Eifert for the Bengals, that's a guy that you would want to play this week, potentially Ebron. And then for the Pats, keep an eye on the Gronkowski injury. I think that's a very big one. If he doesn't play, I think that means stock up for Josh Gordon, potentially even Chris Hogan, who I think has been bottled up a lot this year, hasn't obviously been able to build on his breakout year last year. And obviously Edelman, Brady, Sony Michel, and James White all would get starts for me. I just think that Colts defense is a mess, and I think coming on a short week, going into Foxborough, I love the Pats in this spot. They said giving 10 points. I think they win the game by 15, 16 points. Keep the questions coming. I know that we all have some fantasy lineup questions coming in there. I would post some of my own, but I actually don't know who I'm going to be able to acquire on waivers this week. I know I've put in claims for guys like Kike Kute and Mike Davis, but again, as I said earlier, Mike Davis is a guy now, three-headed monster in Seattle in the running back game with Chris Carson when he's healthy and Rashad Penny, according to Pete Carroll. So to me, you want to get Mike Davis because, again, he blew up last week, and if he gets another start this week, he might be in a good spot to do it. But to me, don't go crazy. Don't spend a ton of your budget if you're in one of those type of leagues. And as we go forward, I do think one of them should be able to establish themselves. It looked like it was Carson after his 100-yard game against the Cowboys, but right now, it's something to take a look at. So keep your question coming. If Leonard doesn't play, Colts will struggle. Yeah, I mean, I think the Colts are going to struggle regardless. Because honestly, their defense just can't match up with the Patriots. You saw what Deshaun Watson did with Will Fuller in and out of the lineup, reinserting Kike Kute into the offense. Brady's now getting Edelman back, who he's comfortable with. If Gronk plays, he's there. Hogan's been in the system now. Dorsett's been in the system for over a year. Patterson was making plays this weekend. I mean, they got guys that can make plays. And Sony Michel is the biggest beneficiary now of Gronk and Edelman coming back, because that's just going to open things up for him to run between the tackles. You saw what he was able to do against the Dolphins, over 100 yards. The guy looked like a stiff in the first couple games against the Lions and Jags that he played in. But then last week he had the confidence, Burkhead's now out with the neck injury. He's got the confidence in the world. They got into his head and said, look, you're our running back right now. James White is not our every down running back. He's more of a compliment to you, more of a PPR running back, obviously. So Michelle is there, and I think he's going to be a huge, huge problem for the Colts, who they get gashed by everyone at this point. They haven't played defense well all season. And you saw they actually played well against the Eagles, but that Eagles offense is just not 100% right now. Jeffrey's just getting back. Wentz still struggling a little bit. So definitely want to stay away from. Keep the comments coming. What I will do here is kind of cycle through some of this stuff that we were talking about, some bonanza potential around the league. I mean, if you got Vikings, Rams, Patriots, Saints, Falcons, Bengals, you're playing these guys. I mean, they just put up so many great numbers. And if you're in a fantasy league and you got these guys, every single matchup, you got to play them. One thing that is actually more alarming than ever is how bad some of these defenses are. I've never seen a year where you can literally go against any defense that I mentioned right now. The Vikings haven't played well on defense. The Saints, the Bucks, the Giants, the Texans, the Colts, the Patriots. That's right there, 7 teams where if I and the Colts I think I mentioned, if I saw them on my schedule with the Raiders, I'd absolutely put everyone in my lineup against them. You just have so much opportunity to put up big points. So to me, that's something to keep an eye on. And G has a comment. Zeke is having an MVP season. He's on pace to break Jim Brown's yards per game record. That's great, G, but to me, the MVP of the league has to be on a team with a winning record. I think this goes for any league. If we're talking about baseball or basketball or hockey even, the only exception would be, let's say, if someone wins the Triple Crown in baseball or something like that. To me, if Ezekiel Elliott and the Cowboys don't make the playoffs, what good was it for? To me, an MVP is someone that brings together the entire team. Think Pat Mahomes. Think about a guy like Brady, who year after year deals with injuries and guys being suspended and all this other nonsense that goes on. He's a guy that just, no matter who's his coordinator, who is his weapons receiver, who his running back is, he's making the team better. Mahomes is certainly doing that so far this season. I like that. I also like what Andy Dalton's doing in Cincinnati. I mean, look, the guy is going to throw his interceptions, but at the same time, they went into Atlanta and won. They beat Baltimore, who has proven to be a solid team. They went into Indianapolis and won. So this team's 3-1. And I think they're on their way to the playoffs. So that's a type of guy that I would want in there. And then look, if you're talking MVP, you got to talk about the other guys too that are potentially going to be in there week in and week out to drive things home. Cam Newton's a guy. Look, I don't love Cam Newton, but if they make the playoffs and win the division, he's a guy you're going to talk about. Certainly Andrew Luck if they make the playoffs. So just keep an eye on those guys. But again, I do think that Zeke is having a great season. And with that offensive line being as banged up as they are, that tells you just how good of a player Ezekiel Elliott is. Let's see if we have a question here. We have a question, a comment. So yeah, question here is Nyheim Hines. Could you tell us a little bit more about him ahead of the Week 5 game against the Patriots? Absolutely. I think that Hines is a guy that's very versatile. You saw what he was able to do at NC State. Him and Jalen Samuels, who's now on the Steelers, combined to form a really dynamic backfield. He could catch the ball out of the backfield. You saw him score a couple times against the Texans. The Patriots linebackers are a tad slow, so if he could be a matchup problem for the Patriots against the Patriots, the Colts will certainly exploit that. So something to keep an eye on this week. I like Hines in PPR formats a lot better as a running back 2 or a flex play, especially as a bye week fill-in guy. If you're streaming him, his price is pretty cheap in DFS, so he's a guy I like absolutely this week. So again, my name is Adam Mancuda, Phantom Fantasy Analyst. You can see me most nights on on DraftKings The Sweat, where we talk about NBA or MLB, but most importantly the NFL for this audience, where we'll kind of go over all the analysis ahead of the week. And then Sundays on SNY, we usually get you a good hour there. And then more importantly for me right now is the Phantom Fantasy Forum. It's $1 to join. You get videos throughout the week on analysis of players and waivers and who to trade and who to stash. And then our Sunday morning show taking you right up until kickoff. That's 11:45 to 1. Join us, join the live stream, join the conversation. A lot more information on that show. Guys I would play, guys I would bench, guys I would be looking to target, what we've kind of learned, which we also discussed here. And a lot of the same folks you'll see here in the chat room also are there as well. This stream was supposed to go till 10. I'm going to take it till 10:30. As long as we have questions, I'm here to help you guys with those answers. And thank you to the Phantom team for letting me run with this one. I think this is a great idea and a lot of good ideas coming through. So keep your questions. Joe, Matt, Joe Rivera, Ari, G, Zach, any questions? Carnut, Bart, Jason, keep the questions coming. Spread the word. We want to continue to have this conversation throughout the week because I think that this gives us a great opportunity to see what other people are thinking and again, bounce ideas off each other. I think that when you can have a discussion and talk about Drew Brees or Deshaun Watson and really not just make a decision based on your opinion, but what the opinion of your league is, and the people on this forum, that's the benefit of the fantasy forum. We can bounce ideas off each other. You got the videos, so keep it coming. I do enjoy having you all here this morning, so let's keep those questions coming. I'm certainly open to any questions you got around the game picks. I think it's early in the week. Obviously, some injuries may skew some lines. The Leonard Fournette one comes to mind. Obviously, Earl Thomas. How's Doug Baldwin going to come back from his injury? Obviously, he played last week. He looked okay. What's the Baker Mayfield situation going to be like? Moving forward, are people going to want to bet on him as much as they did last week when he went to Oakland? Obviously, college football is another big topic. We were just talking about Notre Dame and Virginia Tech and what should be a really good game at Lane Stadium. We got the Red River Shootout with Oklahoma and Texas. Gee, I'd love to get your opinion on what you think there as well in terms of that game, Oklahoma or Texas, and why. We could certainly open that up. Joe, Dallas or Texans? I mean, obviously, we want to be able to promote that as much as possible with our Dallas audience. I don't think that the Texans will lose this one. I just think that the Dallas offense is still a mess. But keep those questions coming. Joe, thanks for your comments as always in terms of the Jags-KC game. Certainly want to have that one there. Carnut, I appreciate the well wishes. Matt Schumann, if you're still out there, good luck to your Eagles moving forward. They are a mess. I don't know what's wrong with Mr. Wentz, but it just doesn't look the same. And obviously the weapons, I think, with Alshon Jeffrey coming back, that should have helped them. But going into Tennessee and losing a game, not a good look at there. So keep these questions coming. One question actually just came in. Hold on. Let me load it up for everybody. Kike Kute, real or not? Look, I think that you saw, if you watch college football over the last few years, his ability to stretch the field. He's a lot like Jakeem Grant, the guy on the Dolphins out of Texas Tech. Very similar player. I think Kute has a little more explosivity to him. He also right now has a better quarterback because Grant's playing with Tannehill and he's got Deshaun Watson. I actually think Kute is going to have a huge opportunity against the Cowboys, and especially if Will Fuller's hurt. Fuller has so much talent, and every game he plays, it seems like he gets 5 to 6 catches, 80 to 90 yards at a touchdown, but then he also has so many of these soft tissue injuries that it really slows him down. So for me, if Fuller's out this week, Kute's a great pickup in fantasy. Absolutely great pickup. And again, as we mentioned earlier, I think if you can somehow get Calvin Ridley, this guy looks like he's just ready to bust out. He's got 6 touchdowns. I don't believe Julio Jones has found the end zone yet for the Falcons. And because the Falcons' defense is just that bad, the offense is going to have to keep up with them, to keep up with the bad defense there. So to me, he's a great, great addition. If you could somehow trade, if you're deep at quarterback, you're deep at running back, yes, he's been amazing. But a lot of those owners of Calvin Ridley are going to look to sell high because they don't think that this is going to continue. So if you could steal him, I think he's going to continue that pace throughout the season. Continue, obviously, with all of your questions as they come in this morning. I'm here to help. We'll probably now close it out around 10:15 in about 5 minutes. So anyone that still has questions out there, I know we have a handful of people still out there watching. Zach, G, any other questions, certainly drop them. Other games to watch this week, obviously, for me, is that Chiefs-Jaguars game that we touched on. I want to see how that kind of plays out, that dynamic between the offense and the defense. That Minnesota-Philly game is one that's really, really interesting. The NFC Championship game replay, if you may. Different quarterbacks, obviously. Case Keenum was involved there. Nick Foles was involved there. So now Wentz and Cousins are in there. We saw how bad the Vikings defense has looked the last couple weeks against the Bills, against the Packers, and obviously against the Rams. The Eagles, on the other hand, just went on the road and lost in Tennessee. They've looked mediocre at best. They barely got by the Colts. They lost to the Bucks. So they're 2-2. The Redskins have played really well. But the good thing for the Eagles, and remember this is, they're not under pressure just yet to take it to that next level. The Giants aren't that good. The Cowboys aren't that good. The Redskins, wait to see on them. They still have Adrian Peterson running the ball. He's 105 years old. Is he going to be able to sustain this throughout the year? So to me, if you're an Eagle fan, relax. You lost a couple of games. You might now not be the number 1 seed considering how good the Rams have looked. But if you can get this game against Minnesota, you're fine. You're going to win the division, and if you get to be the 2 seed, and the only time you have to go on the road in the playoffs is to LA, I think that's a winnable game for you on the road, considering that home field advantage is not much right now for the Rams. But again, the talent is there, and Goff has really taken that next step. So let's wrap this up in a few minutes. Any other questions, please let us know. And again, one more shout out for the Phantom Fantasy Forum. You could check us out throughout the week. It's only $1 to sign up. We got waiver wire posted last night, so you could go check that out in terms of who I would pick up, who I would drop. Some injuries to keep an eye on. I think obviously the T.Y. Hilton injury is one. Earl Thomas. You got Chris Carson to all take into account there. And then you got this all-out blitz show Sunday mornings at 11:45. It's just great. It's a forum where we bounce questions off each other all morning. We take your questions there. Let me guess, sit Jared Goff again. Ryan, absolutely not. I mean, look at it this way. That was one of the worst predictions I've ever had. And when I turned on that game and saw what he did, wow, embarrassing. But you got to remember something. The Vikings defense was one of the better units. I thought they were going to be better matchups. And we also saw what Goff did last year against the Vikings, where he barely threw for over 50%, didn't throw a touchdown. Basically the same team there. He replaced Sammy Watkins with Cooks, but he had Cooper Kupp, he had Gurley, and he had Robert Woods, and he struggled, and he got beat up in that game against the Vikings. But look, that guy has taken an immense step, and if I'm in any league, especially a keeper league, I'm doing everything I can to go get Goff, because that guy now with the added versatility of Cooks, stretching the field, and against a handful of these teams where I actually thought he'd struggle a little bit, he's proven us wrong, and that guy just looks to have taken that next step, especially in the second year with McVay. Sky's the limit for this team. Given the right matchup, they may struggle on the road, but we'll see. I definitely would not. Absolutely, Ryan. I appreciate it. Continue to. Any other questions? Obviously, let me know throughout the week. I think that this is as I said, a great forum to kind of discuss these things. But Goff will not be someone I'm benching. Look, I had the same thing with Ryan Fitzpatrick earlier in the year, where I said he's terrible. He's not going to play. We all saw what kind of a quarterback he was for the Jets and the Bills, obviously. And then he lit it up for obviously those first 3 weeks, and now look at it. I was late by 2 weeks. Now he's not going to play anymore. Jameis Winston's going to be the guy there again. But again, sorry to Mr. and Mrs. Fitzpatrick for my week 1 and 2 doubts of you. But you did turn back into Fitztragic in week 3. So and now obviously week 4 in that blowout loss to the Bears. So Ryan, thanks again for that. That was a really embarrassing one on Goff. But hey, look, this past week we also talked about these guys to pick up. We talked about Sony Michel, 100 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Jones, touchdown for the Packers, really looked to establish himself. 2 weeks ago, we told you Tyler Boyd was ready for a breakout. That happened. Calvin Ridley the same. I think we all saw that coming. Jared Cook, we talked about streaming after week 1, considering the Delaney Walker injury. Now with obviously the Evan Ingram injury as well. Mitch Trubisky is someone that we said might have a high upside game with the Bucs, and now look, he's going to be the hottest pickup this week after 6 touchdowns. So, we've been able to call some of these really nice pickups over the last few weeks. So just keep those coming, keep the comments coming, especially join the forum. I think it's a really great opportunity to kind of see where our mind's at. And Ryan, I'm still chuckling over the Jared Goff thing, because I knew someone eventually was going to find that video and call me out for it. But I think that the rest of those predictions for that game went pretty much according to plan. You're going to play all your studs in that game. And those two defenses right now, especially with the injuries to the Rams, are both ones that you can exploit. Again, I think if you're going against that Rams defense right now, yes, they're going to give up some points, but their offense is going to score enough where the team that's playing against them is going to be chucking the ball over the field in the second half, because most likely they'll be behind. So, some garbage time points, aren't the best when you have a potent offense and you have such a big lead in the second half. So we're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank everyone for joining us on the first episode of the Morning Drive. We'll be every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. I look forward to catching up with everyone throughout the week on the Phantom Fantasy Forum, where again we'll be able to provide tons of analysis throughout the week on game previews. I'll be able to give you some of my thoughts and game picks throughout the week, especially ahead of that Thursday night game between the Colts and the Pats. And then we'll see you all Sunday morning, 11:45, right until kickoff, where we'll break down all of the news and analysis, get your lineups all set and your picks in, your survivor picks too. We can talk about that ahead. Again, $1 for the Fantasy Forum. The link's there on the bottom of the page. Any questions, hit me up on Facebook, Twitter. I'll be able to answer, and you get me 24/7 once you have access there. So thanks all for joining in the premiere episode of The Morning Drive. Have a good day, and any questions, again, hit us up. Take it easy.